Episode 37, Chemo Commies. Hi there, folks. Welcome to a long overdue episode of Uncommie Goods. Here's where we, or maybe I, promote spending our money to support local American-made goods, which in turn supports innovation, supports local communities, jobs, economic opportunity, and growth. All here at home. We may not love the not-so-fine folks running the country, but we do love the principles upon which this country was founded. Try to find another country that has better foundational principles. I'd be curious to learn what you have to say. Doubt it's out there. So, speaking of long overdue, it's been a hell of a year for me personally. It's been a lot of fun. Actually, I finally moved back to the People's Republic of California after spending a year traveling across the U.S., mostly through red states, through the South, Southwest, Southeast. As a lifelong California resident, I really had to check it out, see what's out there. What's it like to live outside of California? I really loved it, and perhaps I'll share my observations in an upcoming episode. For now, I'm back in the Golden State, surrounded by delusional progressives. But hey, the weather and the wine, it's great here. Plus, I'm near the coast, so gotta love that. So today's episode, Chemo Commies, sort of a follow-up on episode 25, Drugstore China. Drugstore China was about how the world relies on China for most of the pharmaceutical products and precursors to pharmaceutical drugs. And that includes like life-saving drugs such as ciprofloxacin, doxycycline, and penicillin. Other things, that treat like anthrax infection. I'm not sure if anthrax is a huge threat, but it's nice to have it when you need it. And the main issue is they're no longer made in the U.S. And something recently came up that I found troubling as well. I was reading CNN.com. Yes, I know. And I stumbled across this article titled, U.S. Cancer Centers Still See Widespread Shortages of Life-Saving Chemo Drugs, Survey Finds. And the second I saw this headline, I was positive I knew what was behind this shortage. And I knew who makes the chemotherapy drugs, especially because they're life-saving and critical. Seems like the more important and vital and life-saving a drug or medicine is, the more likely it's made in China or some other third world country, and it's susceptible to all sorts of supply chain risks. Of course, risks to American lives due to poor quality is usually made, risks to other countries like our friends that are non-commies, be they in Europe or Canada or, south of us. But let me digress here. I want what's best for America and what's best for any non-totalitarian or non-commie nation. If the U.S. can win, so can other countries like Canada, Argentina, and the Netherlands. By taking like an America First policy, it's not necessarily screwing over other countries. They should be taking their own best interest to heart. And I think that's not a bad philosophy. What's best for me, best for you, let's go. So back to the topic at hand, chemo and commies. You can only imagine my frustration as I read this article. Quote, among 29 cancer centers across the country, 72% reported a shortage of the chemotherapy medication carboplatin, maybe carboplatin, I don't know, and 59% are still seeing a shortage of the drug cisplatin, according to the survey results released Thursday. This is in September 2023, by the way. Survey results released Thursday by the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, the NCCN. Carboplatin and cisplatin are used in the combination to treat many types of cancer, end quote. It gets even better, right? Overall, the majority of the surveyed centers, 86% reported a shortage of at least one type of anti-cancer drug. And this was a survey last year in September 23, between the 6th and 20th, among 29 of the National Comprehensive Cancer Network of 33 institutions. So I guess 4 of the institutions didn't respond or maybe did not get the survey in the mail. And guess what? It was even worse back in May of last year. Quote, the survey conducted in May found that 93% of the cancer centers reported a shortage of carboplatin and 70% reported similar shortages of cisplatin, end quote. And again, that was another survey conducted by the NCCN. And can you imagine the scenario? You're a doctor, you're treating a patient. Hey, hi, Mrs. Smith. I'm your cancer doctor, oncologist. Okay, yeah. So I'm your oncologist, and the best course of action is for your cancer is good old fashioned chemotherapy. We caught it early. It's got an 86% success rate. Then Mrs. Smith says, "That sounds great. I can start today." Then the oncologist says, "Well, temper your expectations. The shipment hasn't arrived yet. We're short. We need two combination drugs, not just one. Otherwise, it's not as effective." Mrs. Smith says, "Oh, so next week, where's it coming from? New Jersey? UPS, Amazon Prime?" Oncologist, "No, it's in a freighter ship off the coast of Quanzhou, China, near Taiwan. It's being held up due to military exercises held by China to intimidate Taiwan. By the time they get here, should be a few weeks, you'll have a 37% survival expectancy." Okay, in this scenario, why would chemotherapy drugs be in a container ship off the coast of China, probably roasting in the sun? Because chemotherapy, most of them drugs, are made in China and India with varying degrees of quality and equally unreliable quantity rates. Uh, Separately from a BU Today article, and the BU as Boston University, what's behind the critical shortage of drugs for cancer and other diseases? Quote, most of the ingredients necessary to produce the scarce drugs are made abroad, typically in India and China. Likewise, many finished drugs are made overseas for shipment here. During the pandemic, India restricted pharmaceutical exports to ensure an adequate supply for Indians, basically India first. COVID-19 also shuttered Chinese factories that manufacture drug ingredients. Then the supply of several chemo drugs dried up after Indian manufacturer Intas, or Intas, whatever, suspended production following quality problems highlighted by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. At least we caught the quality problems. Now imagine my shock, that there were these quality problems at a third world manufacturing facility trying to crank out product at the lowest possible price. Speaking of drug manufacturing, prices, selling, etc., there is this like weird dichotomy in the marketing and selling of pharmaceutical drugs that you may not be aware of. Some drugs, especially the newer ones, and you hear them call them blockbuster drugs. Some of them are protected by patents for up to 20 years, right? So the manufacturer has the pricing power, the marketing power to make huge profits. I remember this. I really learned about this when, not personally, but reading the news when Viagra first came out. Do you remember? It was a huge seller. I was in college, and it helped all these older guys finally get their vigor down there below. Once again, sales of Viagra peaked in 2008 at $2 billion dollars a year, 1.934 if you're really counting. At $2 billion dollars a year, the CEO himself should be making the pills in his office by hand. Honestly, to improve, performance with your little guy down there, all you have to really do, most cases, is to eat better, lose weight, cut out the booze, avoid eating inflammatory foods, cut that down, fix your cardiovascular system, get some exercise. So those are those patented blockbuster drugs where they have that pricing protection. Only one person or one company can make and sell it. Then there's generic drugs. Generic. That's where nobody owns the formula. Anyone can make it. At that point, it's like a race to the bottom for pricing, profits, and market share. It's estimated that once a generic drug hits the market after a patent expiration, name brand sales drop by 80%. At least that's according to upcouncil.com, a website for legal related stuff. So, once something drops by 80% in name brand sales, no one really wants to make it. Anybody can make it, therefore, nobody really wants to make it. I also read from stat.com. It's a website that describes themselves as reporting from the frontiers of health and medicine. Quote, U.S. oncologist Dr. Robert Carlson, NCCN's, remember those guys, National Comprehensive Cancer Network? Dr. Robert Carlson, NCCN's chief executive officer, said, quote, patented drugs are very expensive, and because of that, the pharmaceutical industry is incented to produce those medications. It's further complicated by a drug distribution system in the US for generic drugs that's totally dysfunctional. Sounds about right. Very compelling statement he made. I probably would have used the word incentivized instead of incented. but he's really onto something here. Dr. Robert Carlson's suggestion is, quote, I think it's going to take federal action, pretty impressive, dramatic federal action. It's going to require redoing some of the legislation about the pharmaceutical supply chain, end quote. Now, here's where I wish in the article, you know, Dr. Carlson went further into this functional nature of the drug distribution system. What would actually work to improve it? I just don't picture or see any federal action, no matter how dramatic it is, making any aspect of healthcare supply or affordability, improving in any sort of way. Just think about the Affordable Care Act. It's anything but. We were promised that your healthcare bill would be, equivalent to your cable bill. Well, I don't see any cable bills in, to, 500, 300, $1,000, anything like that. So I'm still shocked that we let it get this bad. I mean, we're America. We have ostensibly the best healthcare system in the world. I don't know if it's system, but the best healthcare is available in the world. It might cost you a lot of money out of pocket. You might have to drop a GoFundMe, but it's there. You can access it if you have the right medical plan or money. It's not perfect, I'll tell you that. But I'm still shocked that we let it get this bad. This is America. I thought every hospital would have a stock room filled with anti-cancer drugs. Right? Let's get in there, treat it. We're the best hospital. Have the best hospitals in the world. But no, there's no room filled with chemo drugs or no backup room filled with backup chemo drugs, which reminds me of this great bit in one of my, I'll admit it, Armageddon's one of my favorite movies. It's where they, a big meteor's coming towards the Earth and they got to hire these roughneck oil driller guys to help, bomb the asteroid. And I just love this bit right here with Bruce Willis, just incredulous that the U.S. government doesn't have a plan or a better idea.
What's your contingency plan?
Contingency plan?
Your backup plan. You gotta have some kind of backup plan, right?
No, we don't have a backup plan. This is it.
And this is the best that you can, that the government, the U.S. government can come up with? I mean, you're NASA for crying out loud. You put a man on the moon. You're geniuses. You're the guys that think his shit up. I'm sure you got a team of men sitting around somewhere right now just thinking shit up and somebody backing them up. You telling me you have a backup plan? That these 8 Boy Scouts right here, that is the world's hope? That's what you're telling me?
So what can you do? I don't really see any drastic federal action helping the drug supply problem. I mean, maybe if they remove some barriers, no taxes for generic drugs manufacturing in the United States that meets a certain quality level, somehow make it a little bit more profitable for them to deliver high quality generic drugs that save people's lives. But what can you do on an individual basis? Well, the only thing I could really think of is live a life that optimizes your health, especially if you don't have any underlying conditions to begin with. If you have type 2 diabetes, there's really nothing, or excuse me, type 1 diabetes, that's something you're born with. There's really nothing you can do about that other than, be dependent on insulin. But, live a life where you stay away from any prescribed medications as much as you can. I have personal experience here. I was diagnosed, I'm 50 now. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, I don't know, when I was in mid 30s, and granted, I was about 20, 25 pounds heavier. So I had high blood pressure. I even tried breathing, relaxed every time they took my signals or my vitals, and it was just through the roof. So I was prescribed high blood pressure or hypertension medication, and it wasn't a short-term fix or anything, not like antibiotics where you take it for a few months or a few weeks or a few days to get over an infection. No, Lars, you're going to take this for the rest of your life. I didn't want that, so I lost the weight. I cut out eating most processed food. I'd say I cut it down by 90%. I'll have a pizza every now and then or ice cream. I exercised more. Again, I lost the weight. I combined lost about 35 pounds. That really fixed the problem. Now when I give blood or go see the doctor for a checkup, blood pressure is perfect. And I realize this is a simplistic example of getting off prescription medications, but do your own research. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to tell you specifically what to do. And if you follow my advice and you die, I'm sorry, but that's all on you. But do whatever you can to get off uh, prescription drugs or avoid as long as possible. Live a healthy, active, fit life. That is something you can do individual. Being healthy is very uncommie. It's very freedom loving. The freedom to exercise, be healthy. And some people look at negative exercise in a negative way, like, oh, I got to work out. No, it's a privilege. You are able to work out, and it's a privilege. It's exciting that you can take care of yourself in such a great way. And when you have a good workout or a good walk or a hike, you feel great after. You can only get that after the workout. It's not bottled. You can't take a pill that makes you feel like you just worked out. If there is, I don't want to know about it because I want to keep exercising. So, yes, cut out that unprocessed food. And one of my favorite sources of unprocessed food, it's going to be the Uncommie Good of this episode. Something I'm promoting, but I'm not sponsored by, I want to make that clear, is Wild Pasture Meats. It's a meat subscription service. They deliver it to your front door. It's frozen. It's high quality. Wild Pasture Meats, they support small-scale American farmers, regenerative agriculture, and chemical-free farming practices. When you buy that, you're really helping to bring reality Wild Pasture's mission of providing truly pasture-raised meat to more people at prices that are fair for the farmers and affordable to the members. So I have a monthly subscription. I get mostly beef, but you can get beef, pork, chicken, maybe even fish. So I have a monthly subscription. If you use my referral link, you'll get $20 off. And I agree with how they describe it. It's delicious pasture-raised meats delivered directly to your door. Thanks again for listening, to episode 37, Chemo Commies. And while the commie and progressive forces are aligned against the liberty and minded people like ourselves, stay strong. Don't let the bastards get you down. Thanks for watching or listening. If you're watching on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, maybe comment, say hi, subscribe. If you're listening to on podcasts like Apple or Spotify, please give a 5-star review. And if you want to get in touch, email me with any feedback, questions, praise, even criticism. If you don't like what I had to say, I'd love to hear it. I'm open. So again, thank you for watching episode 37, Uncommie Goods, Chemo Commies. Stay free, my friends.